Now, I was very reluctant to say this, but after sinking in about 25 to 30 hours in Dead Island 2 across PlayStation 5, PC, and even watching some gameplay on the PlayStation 4 Pro, I gotta say, I am thoroughly impressed. How many games do you know of that can actually be consistently delayed across a time span of 8 years, get thrown into at least 5 different development teams, have multiple release dates only to be shoved underneath the rug, not hear a damn thing about it, get one more final release date, and then for, old time's sakes, get one more unexpected delay because, fuck it, why not? Most people are expecting it to just never come out at this point anyways. And not only is it a big shock that it finally released, but it's a playable experience from day one and it's a full game. I tried my best to find as much criticisms about this game as I can possibly can. There's a handful, very small handful, but off the bat, if you're on the fence about this and you like zombie games, you love blood and gore, first person combat, it's very hard to not directly compare this to Dying Light 2 or even Dying Light in general. I'm not going to do that in this video, probably going to go a little more in depth in another video, so stay tuned if you're interested in that. But if you want to play a zombie game that's first person based, maybe play with a friend or two, and you're looking for that type of experience where you can just kind of just not really think and just bash in heads and enjoy the absolute mayhem, I don't think you can go wrong with this game at all. It's not as mentally challenging as other games, or really all that quote unquote engaging as far as difficulty goes. The main thing that this game really has to offer is just running around, exploring the most iconic locations in Southern California, and having fun butchering undead parodies of Californians. I don't think there's really much to offer besides that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But let's talk a little more in depth about this game. As I mentioned, it runs very well. I haven't had any real technical issues or crashes, at least not on PC. Everything's been running buttery smooth. Same on the PlayStation 5. The only thing I ever ran into on the PS5 was after dying, I did respawn under the map. That only happened once and it was a simple fix. I just had to reload my last save and everything was okay. So that's really my experience with any problems this game may have had. Everything has been okay. No pop-ins, no bad loading times, items missing or zombies not spawning in, which truthfully, I was kind of expecting some type of shit show, some type of problem or consistent headache. I think most people were, yet in spite of its troubled development, Dead Island 2 actually came out in a better, more playable state than most games do now. Games that supposedly have gone gold months or a month before its release date, and then it's a complete shit show. Dead Island 2 actually set the standard of how games should be releasing. When we're on the topic of kind of the surface level type of stuff, I do want to talk about this game's graphics and color palette because it is gorgeous. Each location, even at night, but particularly during the day, is vibrant, bright, and just downright stunning. I'm still missing 2 locations, but Venice Beach I think has to be my personal favorite location. Beverly Hills is equally as nice, but it's a bit more urban since it contains mainly residential neighborhoods, but seeing the variation on Venice Beach from the restaurants to the storefronts and then the beach itself, Dam Buster really puts this game's beauty on full display in the singular location, and I just kept finding myself continuously returning to it, just wandering around and taking in the scenery. Seeing the different zombie types, especially when Venice Beach is unlocked, it's kind of the point of the game where you're at that midpoint where most of the zombie types you're going to be facing in the game have been, for the most part, introduced to you, with crushers, the roided out big ass zombies, and the slobbers, the fat ass ones that are spitting acid, being introduced here. You have different zombie classes or types, and then you have variations on those zombies as well. You can see all the zombie types and the variations of them, and it's with these zombie types and how you deal with each one of them that the game's flesh system really starts to shine. When the flesh system was first discussed in the game's trailers, I thought it was going to be just an overhyped gimmick on how this game's gore system worked. The detail in the zombies' anatomies and how their flesh reacted to the different types of elements, from acid in real time burning the flesh off of them, actually seeing the bone be slowly exposed with the zombie's decomposed flesh literally falling off of its bones, to fire burning off clothes and flesh, actually melting everything slowly away, which I have to say, I like how there is an actual difference with how the anatomies are affected from acid to fire. It's not the same animations or you seeing the same exact type of damage done on their bodies and clothes between the two, which I fully expected them to be lazy and do that exact thing. But no, there's a real visual difference. But besides acid and fire, there's also bleeding and electricity. Bleeding honestly has to be, for me anyways, the most visually satisfying, as you can actually maim limbs, break jaws, open up chest cavities, and see their ribs, stomach, and intestines. It really isn't just a gimmick like I expected it to be. And there's even more incentive implemented into the game to have you experiment and use different types of elements and weapon types, because there are different zombie variations that are immune to certain things. For instance, firefighter zombies are immune to fire and electricity. Spiked zombies are immune to anything that has a bleeding effect applied. Electricians or cable guys are immune to electricity electricity, and so on. There's not a massive variety or huge complexity thrown into this game's zombie roster and what you do or how you take care of them, but the mix-up and slight variations of them is interesting and a bit more of a pleasant surprise than I expected. And what's interesting about this is you don't have to deal with the zombies a particular way. For instance, the electricians, over the course of time, they just kind of emit a massive amount of electricity. You can wait, or you can throw some water on them, and then you can force that explosion of electricity to happen much quicker, giving you an extra opening to not only attack them on your own terms, but if they're surrounded by other zombies, you're now electrifying any other zombies because of that electricity that's emitted. So it's fun, you know, it's different. It's not like you're being forced to deal with them a particular way. Honestly, you can do it however you want. My only complaint about the zombie types are the butchers. They are not really enjoyable to fight, and I feel like they kill the flow of everything else. This game is really something where you don't have to think. You're just enjoying killing everything, and now with the butchers you have a type that is fast, aggressive, can regenerate health, and can also block your attacks. If they couldn't block your attacks and instead the regeneration of health was higher, personally I would have been much happier with that than them actually blocking my attacks, but I just found myself, you know, every time facing these guys, I just said fuck it, pulled out a gun, and threw out a bunch of explosives because they feel cheap to play against, so I do whatever to just get them out of the way. They're not really enjoyable to deal with. Fuck them. But if you ever forget on what's the best way to deal with certain types, you can always refer to the Zompedia. You know, it's kind of a no-brainer when you have a game that has a catalog of different types of enemies and how you can deal with them, but I've never delved into codexes or entries on how to deal with enemies like this because usually I'm very stubborn and ignore that type of stuff, but something about this game and how easily all of the information is presented to you just makes me go back and just look at these, especially since I guess on the same page you can see challenges here. But speaking of challenges, let's talk about this game's progression, its skill card system, blueprints, and how everything works. So Dead Island 2 doesn't have a traditional skill tree. Instead, as you progress through the game, you're given these skill cards, and you acquire them either through exploration in the world, you know, just finding them naturally by exploring the various environments. You can get them by completing certain challenge milestones or by completing main story or a side mission. The cards are all interchangeable and can be swapped out at any time. Some cards are specific to certain slayers or characters you can choose from. Others affect Fury Mode, essentially a mode where once you kill enough zombies you do increased damage while gaining health back for your kills. Others are a bit more passive or defensive, and once you unlock enough, or even certain ones, they can drastically change how the game is. I had a card that whenever I drop kicked a zombie, it ignited them on fire, but the trade-off was every time I did that, it took some of my health. So to counter that, I had another card that for every zombie I maimed, I got some health back. So I was able to drop kick everything, light them all on fire, and then maim them to recover the health I had just lost. I also had a card where in Fury Mode, every attack triggered an explosion, causing much more damage towards my enemies. So essentially, late game, I was a walking tank. Some of them are much more outlandish and ridiculous, while others complement certain abilities, and others are just much more passive, and frankly you kind of forget they're even equipped. But by playing more of the main story unlocks more slots, meaning you can equip more simultaneously, which is great. Besides skill cards, you're given blueprints and these things called curveballs. Curveballs are interesting because they add more of a dynamic into the flow of combat. Basically, they're throwables. They are on their separate cooldown and you can have two equipped at the same time. And some of the curveballs in the game are things like Molotovs, pipe bombs, shurikens, zombie bait. So they add some nice combos to the flow of combat by just throwing down some bait, drop kicking a zombie to some explosive barrels via that specific card, a zombie that you just lit on fire from drop kicking them, and then following all that up with a pipe bomb. The fact that it's all on its own separate cooldown and you don't need resources or anything to use pipe bombs or other throwables, I think really makes a world difference, and it doesn't drastically impact the combat as much as you might think. As a matter of fact, I think it's balanced really nicely to complement it rather than take away from it. Blueprints like the skill cards are really given to you by exploration. You can buy some through vendors. Most are given through exploration or even by completing specific challenges, and they can be applied to pretty much anything. I think the best thing about the blueprints honestly is the fact that you can actually apply it to any gun, whether that be a revolver, the nail gun, a pistol, shotguns, or the game's rifles. I really do like the way the rifles are in this game. I didn't think I was going to. I didn't expect myself to use a lot of weapons or a lot of firearms, guns, but the gunplay in this game is actually very satisfying. Eventually you can find blueprints on even giving you the ability to craft your own ammo, so eventually you can ultimately just go through and turn this into an FPS if you really wanted to. But I mean, all in all, I am pleasantly surprised with Dead Island 2, and I highly recommend it. I didn't think I was going to enjoy this game anywhere near as much as I did, or as much as I do. I've been stuck to this game, very much addicted, hopping from PlayStation to PC and just experimenting and playing with the Slayers. There's not much of a difference from Slayer to Slayer besides the innate skills, but a lot of the cards, the basic stuff, whether that be block, drop kick, flying kick, they're all kind of the same abilities. There's not really too many specific cards that are tied to one particular Slayer. But that's it. That's my experience with Dead Island 2. Let me know what you guys think. Have you guys played Dead Island 2? What are your thoughts on it? Was it as good as you expected it to be? Is it better? Is it worse? What are your thoughts? I'm genuinely curious. But like always, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Cynic, and until next time, I will see you all in the next video.